31 years ago, Voyager didn't just launch. It vanished into the Delta Quadrant, redefining TV, survival stakes. The credits faded, but the cast's reality splintered. Here is the unvarnished analysis of the Voyager ensemble in 2026, identifying the industry titans, the quiet exits, and the legends we have lost. B'Elanna Torres wasn't just an engineer. She was the show's volatile emotional engine, a genius, capable of stabilizing a warp core while her internal conflict threatened to breach the hull. Roxann Dawson, born September 11, 1958, in Los Angeles, entered the fray at 37 in 1995, a casting masterstroke. As the half-human, half-Klingon chief, Dawson didn't just fix ships. She portrayed a war against her own biology, turning sci-fi makeup into a raw commentary on mixed-race identity and the violence of self-loathing. Dawson avoided melodrama, grounding every Klingon outburst with a terrifying, human vulnerability. Her relationship with Tom Paris defied TV tropes, evolving from friction to a bedrock marriage that argued, stability isn't found, it is forged in the void. Post-Voyager, Dawson executed a career pivot. Few actors survive. She traded the makeup chair for the director's monitor, emerging as a heavyweight, behind the lens on titans like Lost, Breaking Bad, and The Mandalorian, eventually returning to command the Star Trek universe visually. B'Elanna's fictional fight for respect parallels Dawson's real-world dominance. Brilliant, uncompromising, and refusing to let Hollywood box her in. Tom Paris represented the classic redemption arc, the franchise screw-up who grabbed a second life with both hands. Robert Duncan McNeil, born November 9, 1964 in Raleigh, North Carolina, was 31 when Voyager launched in 1995. Paris began as a cautionary tale, a disgraced pilot, defined by prison bars. Janeway offered a mission. Fate turned it into a 7-year odyssey of character rehabilitation. Cocky, yet crippled by hidden guilt, Paris didn't just fly the ship. He had to navigate his own ego in the Delta Quadrant. While he pulled off miracle maneuvers at the helm, those were just mechanics. The real victory was psychological, confronting his father's shadow and learning that commitment to B'Elanna wasn't a trap, but an anchor. His fixation on 20th century Americana and B-movies gave the high-tech setting a necessary, nostalgic heartbeat. When the cameras stopped, McNeil mirrored his character's maturation, transitioning into a prolific executive producer and director for hits like Chuck and Resident Alien. Tom Paris stands as the franchise's argument for second chances, proving a crash landing is just the prequel to a better flight. Neelix entered as the jester but quietly evolved into the crew's emotional glue. Ethan Phillips, born February 8, 1955 in Garden City, New York, was 40 when he adopted the Talaxian persona in 1995. On the surface, Neelix was the morale officer, a chef serving strange optimism. Yet, viewers often missed the darkness beneath the whimsy. This wasn't just a happy guide. This was a genocide survivor masking crushing PTSD with frantic cheer. Over 7 seasons, the writers deconstructed the clown, revealing a man terrified of obsolescence, battling deep-seated insecurity. His dynamics, with Tuvok and 7 of 9, provided the show's sharpest humanity. His final exit, leaving the ship to rebuild his people, wasn't a goodbye. It was the completion of a healing cycle. Phillips navigated a role that risked becoming a caricature, instead delivering a masterclass in tragic comedy. Post-show, his resume exploded across theater and film, proving his range extended far beyond prosthetics. Neelix remains a complex study in trauma response, proof that the loudest laugh often hides the deepest pain. The Doctor began as software and finished as the most human soul on the manifest. Robert Picardo, born October 27, 1953 in Philadelphia, was 42 at the 1995 premiere. Designed as a temporary medical patch, the EMH was forced into permanent rotation. a glitch that sparked an accidental evolution of consciousness. He didn't just download personality. He fought for it, discovering opera, ego, and the messy complications of rights. His biting sarcasm was a defense mechanism. His desire for personhood was the show's philosophical core. Picardo balanced technical dialogue with soulful longing, making a hologram's struggle for recognition the ultimate underdog story. Classic Trek questions on artificial sentience didn't stop with Data. They evolved here, setting the stage for everything that followed. Picardo didn't just act. He built a bridge across sci-fi and drama, cementing a legacy that transcends the uniform. For the fandom, the Doctor proves that a soul isn't biological, it's earned. Lieutenant Tuvok served as the tactical anchor in Voyager's sea of chaos, pure Vulcan. Discipline stabilizing a crew of emotional humans and volatile former rebels. Tim Russ, born June 22, 1956, in Washington, D.C., was 39 when the series launched in 1995, a seasoned age for a seasoned character. As security chief, Tuvok brought more than logic. He brought decades of Starfleet grit and an unwavering loyalty to protocol. His history with Janeway wasn't just backstory. It was the command structure's backbone, making him her only peer capable of challenging orders without inciting mutiny. On screen, Tuvok's stoicism provided the perfect comedic foil to Neelix's manic energy and the Maquis' raw impulsiveness. Yet, look closer at the episodes probing his psyche, mind melds, and mental breakdowns, and you see the immense pressure required to maintain that Vulcan facade. Russ delivered a masterclass in restraint, honoring the Spock archetype while carving out a darker, more tactical edge. Behind the scenes, his influence expanded to directing episodes, cementing his status as a creative pillar of the franchise. Tuvok remains one of Star Trek's definitive portraits of duty, principled, lethal, and carrying burdens the crew never sees. Ensign Harry Kim was the perennial rookie who never got the pip, but quietly became Voyager's moral compass. Garrett Wang, born December 15, 1968, in Riverside, California, was just 27 when reporting for duty in 1995. Fresh from the academy, Harry represented the idealist expecting a textbook tour, only to be thrown 70,000 light-years off script. Over 7 grueling seasons, writers had him kidnapped, duplicated, and killed, often serving as the Quadrant's cosmic punching bag. Yet, despite being stranded in alternate timelines and facing constant peril, he retained a resilience that defined the Starfleet ethos. His dynamic with Tom Paris in 7 of 9 allowed him to evolve from nervous plebe to battle-hardened veteran, even if the brass refused to change the pips on his collar. Wang's performance channeled an earnest vulnerability that made Harry the audience surrogate the young professional trying to survive impossible odds without losing himself. Post-Voyager, Wang leveraged his status to become a convention titan, tirelessly championing the series and validating the fanbase's dedication. Harry Kim might have been denied the rank of lieutenant in the script, but in the canon of public opinion, he earned that promotion decades ago. Lieutenant Ayala represents the unspoken heroes of the franchise, faces you know instantly, even without a name attached. Played by Tarik Ergin, born June 7, 1961, in Hingham, Massachusetts. He was 34 when he stepped onto the bridge in 1995. A Maquis convert who became part of the ship's furniture, Ayala proved that a starship runs on its crew, not just its senior staff. He rarely spoke, but his ubiquity manning tactical, securing corridors, sold the illusion of a functioning vessel where life and death decisions require backup. That silent consistency grounded Voyager, preventing it from feeling like a stage play revolving around 7 people. Ergin's professional discipline turned a background extra into a cult figure, the blue-collar officer, representing the hundreds of souls just trying to get home to their families. Since the finale, he has maintained ties to the Trek multiverse, honoring the legacy of the lower decks. Ayala stands as a reminder that while captains get the speeches, the ship doesn't fly without the guys pressing the buttons. Majel Barrett wasn't just an actress. She was the heartbeat of the Federation. Born February 23, 1932, in Cleveland, Ohio, she was 63 when Voyager debuted in 1995. As the disembodied voice of the computer, Barrett provided the sonic connective tissue linking Voyager to the original Enterprise and every vessel in between. Her voice is the auditory trigger for tension shields dropping, red, alerts sounding, or Janeway charting a course into oblivion. Before this, she defined the franchise as Nurse Chapel and the indomitable Roxann Troi, while serving as the real-life partner to creator Gene Roddenberry. On Voyager, she was the ghost in the machine, an omnipresent matriarch. Even though we never saw her face in this series, her tone offered a subconscious safety net, assuring viewers that this was still Star Trek. It still belonged to the same hopeful future. Majel Barrett continued to lend her legacy to the franchise until her passing on December 18, 2008, at 76. She remains the eternal First Lady of Star Trek, her voice distinct as the computer interface, a sonic signature that outlives the era. 7 of 9 didn't just join Voyager. She struck like lightning. Jeri Ryan, born February 22, 1968 in Munich, West Germany, was 29 when she entered Season 4. This wasn't just casting, it was a paradigm shift. As a former drone, 7 personified the franchise's deepest philosophical battle, the chaotic, agonizing reclamation of the self. Initially cold, brutally efficient, and disdainful of human error, she became a study in evolution, learning boundaries, humor, and desire, while bearing the invisible scars of weaponization. Her friction with Janeway formed the show's emotional backbone in later seasons, a mentorship forged in fire, defined by stubbornness, trust, and necessary betrayal. Ryan's performance, masterfully restrained by a stoic facade, projected immense vulnerability, securing critical praise and revitalizing the series' ratings. Post-Voyager, her trajectory remained sharp in dramas like Boston Public and Body of Proof, but her return in Star Trek, Picard, proved vital, presenting an older, battle-hardened 7 who resonates with a cynical modern audience. She stands as one of the genre's most complex figures, part machine, fully human. Kes, the gentle Ocampa, with a mere 9-year lifespan, offered a stark counterpoint to the crew's military rigidity. Jennifer Leon, born August 24, 1974 in Palos Heights, Illinois, brought a precocious intensity at just 21 when cast. In 1995, starting as Neelix's partner and a medical apprentice, she quickly transcended those roles. Her accelerated aging forced a narrative urgency few characters possess. Her rapidly expanding psychic potential transformed her from a passenger into a volatile variable capable of reshaping reality itself. Kes provided emotional intelligence that balanced a stressed ship, particularly anchoring the Doctor and Tuvok. Her departure in Season 4 was less a resignation and more an ascension, propelling the crew safely homeward at a sacrificial cost. It framed her exit as a moment of profound evolution. Leanne stepped away from Hollywood, and while her private life has drawn concern, her on-screen legacy is untouched. Kes remains suspended in memory at that precise intersection of innocence and omnipotence, proving a journey's value is defined by depth, not duration. William Mackenzie represents the silent majority, faces viewers rarely name but who quietly ground the universe in reality. Richard Sarstedt, born March 29, 1941, was 54 when Voyager launched. In 1995, he serves as the essential texture of Starfleet, one of the countless professionals keeping systems running while the senior staff creates history. He is a constant in the corridors and briefings. This authenticity matters because the show's premise of isolation relies on the belief that hundreds share the burden, not just the familiar dozen. Sarstedt's understated consistency gave weight to that collective struggle. His Mackenzie is the archetype of the career officer who clocks in and endures without expecting a heroic monologue. While he never demands the spotlight, dedicated fans identify him as a comforting anchor, a recurring element you actively seek in every episode. In this sense, he embodies the truest Starfleet ideal, duty performed faithfully in the shadows. Naomi Wildman symbolized what the ship desperately fought to protect: a future. Scarlett Palmers, born November 28, 1988 in Riverside, California, was only 9 when she debuted in 1998. As the first child born during the long exile, she was a hybrid of Earth and Carrion physiology, but spiritually, a daughter of the Delta Quadrant. Her wide-eyed inquiry into the ship's operations prevented the setting from becoming stale, reminding us that for some, this dangerous void was the only home they knew. Her unlikely dynamic with Seven of Nine, who evolved into a stern yet protective mentor, allowed the writers to explore humanity from the dual perspectives of a child and an ex-Borg. Palmers brought a refreshing naturalism to the role, avoiding the trap of the precocious TV kid. She felt like a genuine survivor growing up in extraordinary circumstances. After Voyager, Palmers continued her artistic journey, leaving behind a character who proved that even in the void, life finds a way to flourish. Scarlett Palmers eventually pivoted from acting to champion music and advocacy, focusing specifically on eating disorder recovery. Naomi Wildman remains the emotional anchor for fans, the living answer to that haunting crew question: what are we fighting to get home for? Then there is Seska, the archetype of betrayal who injected Voyager's early seasons with necessary friction. Portrayed by Martha Hackett, born February 20th, 1961 in Boston, she was 34 during her debut in 1995. Initially presented as a Maquis engineer, Seska appeared to be just another rebel, chafing under Starfleet protocol, until the facade crumbled. The revelation that she was actually a Cardassian operative, surgically modified to infiltrate the crew, transformed her into the show's most intimate antagonist. Bitter, sharp, and clinically ruthless, she weaponized Maquis grievances, seduced potential allies, defected to the Kazon, and maintained a psychological stranglehold on Chakotay through the fabrication of a child. Hackett balanced Seska's toxicity with charisma, ensuring every reappearance felt less like a villain of the week and more like the return of a bad habit. While other threats were abstract aliens, Seska was personal, betrayal wearing the face of a friend. After concluding her arc, Hackett sustained a prolific career in television and voice acting. Seska stands today as the franchise's premier non-Borg nemesis, a chilling reminder that the most devastating strikes come from those who once stood at your shoulder. Icheb entered the narrative as a rescued drone, but evolved into a symbol of reclamation. Played by Manu Intiraymi, born April 22, 1978, in Santa Cruz, California. He was 22 upon joining the ensemble in the year 2000. Icheb carried one of the franchise's bleakest origins, genetically engineered by his own parents, the Brunali, to function as a biological weapon against the Borg, only to be assimilated and eventually liberated by Voyager's team. Under the mentorship of Seven of Nine, he fought to reconstruct his identity, channeling a formidable intellect into the sciences. Quiet, intense, and frequently more emotionally mature than his superiors, Icheb represented the first generation of post-Borg survivors, marked by the collective but refusing to be defined by it. Intiraymi delivered a performance of understated sincerity, making his trajectory towards Starfleet feel like a hard-won victory rather than a plot convenience. Post-Voyager, the actor continued in independent cinema and genre films. For the audience, Icheb remains one of the Delta Quadrant's most optimistic figures, a survivor choosing contribution over resentment. Ensign Vorik added a crucial Vulcan counterweight to engineering, portrayed by Alexander Enberg, born April 5, 1972. He was 25. When he debuted in 1997, as a junior officer reporting to B'Elanna Torres, Vorik embodied orthodox Vulcan restraint within a department fueled by impulse and aggression. His dynamic with Torres, particularly during his Pon-farr-induced breakdown, provided one of the series' most visceral examinations of the chaos beneath Vulcan logic. That narrative, intentionally uncomfortable, underscored how a species dedicated to reason is perpetually one chemical imbalance away from violence, exploring themes of consent under extreme biological pressure. Enberg's portrayal struck a delicate balance, keeping Vorik distinct from Tuvok younger, less assured, and still mastering his own suppression. Behind the scenes, Enberg held a unique connection as the son of executive producer Jeri Taylor. Yet Vorik earned his place among the fandom, proof that secondary characters can possess three-dimensional depth and independent arcs. Ensign Samantha Wildman introduced a scientific precision and maternal warmth to the vessel. Played by Nancy Hauer, born May 11, 1966 in Wyckoff, New Jersey. She was 29 at her introduction in 1995. As the ship's xenobiologist, Wildman managed the bizarre and lethal flora of the Delta Quadrant, grounding the high-concept sci-fi with the reminder that exploration remained the primary directive. Her narrative gained weight when she announced her pregnancy, eventually giving birth to Naomi Wildman, the first infant born, in isolation from the Federation. Juggling hazardous away missions with single motherhood in deep space, Samantha represented a quiet resilience, the sheer will to construct a semblance of normalcy in an impossible scenario. Hauer performed the role with a gentle intelligence, avoiding melodrama, to focus on realism. Following Voyager, she pivoted her creative energies toward directing, writing, and production, building a successful career off-camera. Samantha Wildman stands as a testament to Voyager's core philosophy. Even in the absolute void, humanity endures by building families and securing the future. Lieutenant Joe Carey wasn't just staff. He defined Voyager's quintessential working engineer, the backbone functionality every starship relies on, yet history rarely archives. Josh Clark, born August 16, 1955 in Bethesda, Maryland, was 40 when he stepped into this understated role in 1995. Establishing himself early as a senior engineer, Carey embodied the Starfleet Old Guard protocol. Notice the immediate friction. He's suddenly forced to integrate with Maquis rebels, stripped of starbases, denied reinforcements, and cut off from Earth. His clashes with B'Elanna Torres weren't just workplace drama. They were case studies in professionalism, bridging radical ideological divides. Carey's extended disappearances and eventual return, only to face a tragic end near the finale, highlighted the genuine volatility of life in the Delta Quadrant. This wasn't a redshirt death. Clark's grounded performance made Carey a tangible career officer, not a narrative pawn. His loss resonated precisely because he lacked main character plot armor. He represents the silent majority who maintain the engines, until the duty consumes them. Joe Carey remains a solemn tribute to the nameless Starfleet personnel who never make the highlight reel. Reginald Barclay had already secured cult status on The Next Generation, yet his return on Voyager arguably eclipsed his earlier arc. Dwight Schultz, born November 24, 1947, in Baltimore, was 48 when he reintroduced Barclay to the timeline in 1997. Neurotic, socially paralyzed, yet brilliant, Barclay stood as the antithesis to the polished, flawless Starfleet archetype. Voyager gave him what the Enterprise couldn't: a desperate purpose on Earth, obsessively engineering a way to contact the stranded vessel. His unorthodox methodology and refusal to abandon a crew he had never met ultimately forged the first viable communications tether between the Delta Quadrant and Command. Schultz navigated Barclay with a sophisticated mix of humor and pathos, never punching down on the character's anxiety, but leveraging it to demonstrate a different breed of heroism. These storylines brought necessary visibility to mental health struggles within the Utopian Federation, a narrative rarity in 1990s television. Beyond the franchise, Schultz remained a prolific force in film and voice acting, including his iconic run on the A-Team. For the fanbase, Barclay represents the definitive proof that you don't need a seat on the bridge to save the ship. Captain Catherine Janeway didn't just command the USS Voyager. She fundamentally restructured the Star Trek legacy. Kate Mulgrew, born April 29, 1955 in Dubuque, Iowa, was 40 when the series launched in 1995. As the franchise's inaugural female lead, Janeway bore the crushing weight of both a starship and a generation of cultural expectations. Stranded 70,000 light-years from support, her command required balancing high-minded Starfleet idealism with the savage necessities of survival. This meant navigating moral gray zones no previous captain had touched. Her dynamics with Chakotay, Tuvok, and Seven of Nine revealed a multifaceted leader, mentor, scientist, diplomat, and when the situation demanded, a ruthless tactician. Mulgrew injected the role with fierce intelligence and calculated vulnerability, cementing Janeway as an icon of resilience. Post-Voyager, Mulgrew continued her momentum. At full impulse, landing acclaimed roles like Red and Orange is the New Black, voicing Star Trek, Prodigy, and maintaining a steady presence on stage and screen. Decades later, Captain Janeway endures as the evidence that command isn't about testosterone or bravado. It is about ethics, personal sacrifice, and the sheer nerve to stand alone. Commander Chakotay served as the gravitational center of Voyager's bridge, stabilizing the chaos with a single look. Robert Beltran, born November 19, 1953 in Bakersfield, California, was 42 when he donned the Maquis leathers and Starfleet uniform in 1995. Chakotay entered as a former rebel, compelled to serve alongside the institution he had sworn to dismantle, symbolizing the fragile armistice between Starfleet and the Maquis. On screen, he projected a calm, fierce loyalty, frequently operating as Janeway's moral compass and emotional anchor when the isolation of command became untenable. His spirituality, respect for ancestral tradition, and unwavering commitment to unity positioned him as the diplomat on a vessel constantly on the verge of fracturing. Beltran's understated delivery imbued Chakotay with a quiet dignity, keeping the character grounded even during seasons where the writing room struggled to utilize him. Following the series, Beltran continued working across film and theater, becoming a convention staple known for his candid, no-nonsense reflections on the Delta Quadrant production. Ultimately, Chakotay remains the archetype of the bridge builder, perfectly balancing duty with belief. This concludes our deep dive into the Voyager personnel files. It reveals the industry's harsh reality survivors still grinding the global circuit contrasted against those immortalized solely by the syndication reels we study. Evaluate the career arcs presented, which actors' pivot demonstrated the most surprising range, and regarding the Delta Quadrant hierarchy, whose absence leaves the biggest void? Sound off in the comments. Validate this analysis by subscribing and reconnect right here on Hollywood Echo 1960s, because true stardom doesn't fade, it echoes.